Hi everybody, this is Dr. Dalton from Hammond Chiropractic, and today I'm back at Top Field CrossFit in Crown Point, Indiana, and we're going to make a special video for you today about plank. Now I asked them specifically to help me make this video because this one is very specific to my patients. Let me explain why that is. Many people who have low back problems should actually never do a sit-up, all right? There are two positions that your spine is the weakest in, especially the lower back. The first one is flexion, which is bending, and then the second one is rotation or twisting. Now, typically, it's okay if you do one or the other, but you cannot combine the two because that position is actually where the discs of your spine are at their weakest. And one tricky thing that happens to people that you don't think about is that when I'm in a seated position, remember my spine is actually in a flexed position. And so if you go to twist, that's actually going to cause damage to your spine. So you got to be careful with that. So because we typically don't recommend sit-ups for people who already have a back problem, a plank is a really, really good alternative where you can still strengthen your core muscles, which is very important, especially if you have back troubles. But at the same time, you're not having that same flexion and rotation in the movement, so you're not likely to damage your back any more than it already probably is, all right? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and have Coach Dustin Shurlow, who is one of the owners of Top Field CrossFit in Crown Point here. He's gonna walk you step by step through how to do the plank properly to begin with, and then he's also gonna give you some options if you want to advance with your plank and do something more challenging with it so that you can get even more benefit from it. And then I'm gonna come back in and we're gonna talk a little bit more about how this is gonna benefit your back, as well as problems that you're going to be avoiding by doing this. All right, I'll see you in just a minute. Go ahead, Coach Dustin.
All right, guys. So today, talking about those planks. All right, very important core movement. Basic plank position. Some rules that we want to follow here for that basic plank. All right, when we're in that high plank, we want those hands right underneath the shoulders. We want to squeeze our glutes. We're trying to maintain tension in your upper back, keeping that back nice and flat. And we really want to make sure that we flex our abs, right? This is a core exercise, so flexing the abs is the most important thing. It's not always all about how long you can hold the plank, but a lot of times just the quality of the plank that you're doing. Moving on and talking about that low plank. That low plank, just a little bit harder than that high plank position. Same rules apply. We're still going to want to squeeze our glutes, maintaining tension in the upper back, keeping our back nice and flat. Our arms from the shoulder to the elbows are going to be perpendicular to the ground, and we still want to have those abs nice and flexed. Moving on to a side plank. For that side plank, you're going to be on one side, forearm flat on the ground, elbow lined up directly underneath your shoulder, both legs out in a straight line. We want our feet staggered for more stability or stacked on top of each other for a little bit more of a challenge. We want those hips to stay off the floor, and then we want to see a straight line from our head to our feet. Keeping that hand on the side, make it a little bit easier, and extending that hand straight up into the air is going to make it just a little bit harder. Now, for a few harder options for those planks, first that single leg plank. So same starting position as that low plank, except for we want to bring one leg straight up and try to hold it as long as possible. And then switch to the next leg and try to hold it for the same amount of time. Another more difficult option would be that plank push-up. When doing a plank push-up, we want to start in the high plank position and then slowly lower yourself into a low plank and back up. We would repeat that for a specified amount of time. Another difficult option would be that knee to outside elbow plank. For that knee to outside elbow plank, we're going to want to start in that low plank position and bring that knee up and out toward that same elbow and then back to that starting position. We're going to repeat that back and forth on each side for a specified amount of time.
All right, guys, I just have a few more things that I want to say about plank with you today. The very first thing I want to talk to you about is when you're in your plank position, it's very important that you make sure that your spine and your body stays nice and straight. Now, what I mean by that is that you don't want to ever lift the butt up too high so that you're in a flexed position, and you also don't want to let the butt drop too low where you lose strength in the lower back here. It's very important that you maintain a nice strong body through the entire plank if you want to get the full benefit from this. Now, remember that I mentioned earlier that if you have back problems, a sit-up is really something that you should never do, and I wanted to show you why. This model here, this is a model of your spine, and of course we're going to pretend like this is in the low back here, but what I want you to notice with this is, of course, you've got the bones stacked on top of each other, and then the disc is right here. It's a cushion between the bones, and you can see that your spinal cord here, it lives inside of your spine, and in between every set of bones here, you've got this opening where the nerves are actually exiting the spine. And these nerves are really important because they're basically controlling everything inside of your body, and they're providing power for the body to work properly. So you want to make sure that those nerves are always working the way that they're supposed to, and that there's never any pressure on those nerves. Well, notice with me, this is the back of the spine, all right, and this is the front of the spine. So if I were doing a sit-up, I'd be starting like this, and of course my body is going to be coming up like this, all right? Well, when you do this, what happens is that it actually puts pressure onto that disc. And you can see here that if you're not careful over time, did you see how that disc actually bulges out? I'm going to bring it a little closer for you there just so you can make sure you see that. But when that disc bulges out, look what happens. It puts pressure right onto that nerve. This is a very, very serious problem. We call it either a bulging disc or a herniated disc. There's actually different stages of this problem, but you never ever want that to happen in your back because it's very, very difficult to treat. It takes a long time. It's very, very painful for people. And so in general, I always recommend that you do plank rather than doing a sit-up, but especially if you already have a problem in your lower back. You don't want to ever take the risk that that's going to happen to you, all right? Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is that when you start with your planks, you may not be able to do this, all right? Now, I've made a commitment to make these videos apply to just about anybody, whether you are a brand new beginner who's never exercised in your entire life, or whether you're an athlete who's been doing this all of your life, okay? So if you're a beginner and you're not comfortable in the plank position, number one, you don't have to hold it as long, all right? The goal with these planks would be to get to where you can hold it for a full 60 seconds or a full minute without dropping to the floor, all right? But you don't start that way. Not everybody can do that. If you can hold it for 5 seconds, that's okay. Then maybe next week try to go to 10 seconds, 15. You gradually want to work your way up because your body's going to get stronger with this over time. In addition to that, if you actually cannot do the plank on the floor for whatever reason, so for example, I have some patients who have knee replacements and there's no way they can get down to the floor in order to do this exercise. So a couple of alternatives to this is, number one, you can use your kitchen countertop, all right? And what you want to do is you want to put your hands against the kitchen countertop and then just have your body lean against that. You're still going to be contracting your core muscles with this exercise, but it's not as challenging as if you were doing this on the floor. Once you get really good at that and you can hold that for a full minute, then you may want to go to a chair. Now, I'm going to tell you though, if you go to the chair, make sure that you put the chair up against a wall, so that way it doesn't fall away from you when you're actually holding yourself on the chair. All right, that's another option for you. A final alternative with this exercise is that you can do this on your knees. So instead of actually going up onto your toes, instead you stay on your knees and you can do the plank that way as well. And it's a good challenge. It's still going to give you the exercise benefit that you're going for, but it's not as difficult as when you actually do the regular plank position. All right. So those are a couple of other options for you. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Now, I guess I will share one more thing with you guys. Now, at the beginning when we were talking about putting this video together, we were trying to decide which, because there's literally a ton of different things that you can do in the plank position. And we just wanted to kind of cover the basics for you. But I do this thing that I call a plank challenge, and I don't even remember where I found this at, but I do this 3 days a week when I work out. And I want to share it with you guys just so that you can try this. If you're bold enough, if you want to try this, I'm telling you, it's an incredible core workout. But what you do is you start with 60 seconds in the low plank position. So that's the one where we're on our forearms, okay? You want to hold that for 60 seconds. Then what you want to do is you want to do the one leg plank on each leg for 30 seconds each. And then you're going to go into side plank for 30 seconds on each side. And then you repeat that. Typically, I try to get through it 3 times if I can. And a lot of times I'll be weight training at the same time, so I'll do some weight training in between when I get tired. Because it's hard, let me tell you, it's a real challenge. But start with just the basic plank. Don't attempt that until you get comfortable with this movement. And once you get there, try to challenge yourself a little bit. You're gonna notice that your core gets a lot stronger. And because there's no flexion involved with this, it's a safe exercise that you can do, and you're not gonna damage your back at all. All right. Thank you so much for listening to us and following us with these videos. We've been really excited about making them for you guys, and we're just having a great time doing it for you. So I will see you on the next one.